Welcome to the Buzz on KFAR Radio. I'm your host, Kemp Langford, and my co-host, Crystal Collier. And on today's special episode of Pop Politics, we have the Fairbanks mayoral candidates here.
Good morning, this is Jim Matherly.
And Catherine Dodge.
And Lakeisha Jordan.
Frank Jerry, a hamster, not a hamster.
Absolutely. So we're having a beautiful morning today.
As beautiful as a nice rainy morning can be.
Very nice. Well, I guess we'll just go ahead and jump into this. The election time is definitely winding down, and we definitely get moving forward with that. So, my first question out of the box is, as a mayoral candidate, what knowledge and understanding do you have of the cannabis and CBD industries here in Fairbanks? Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Kemp, and thanks for having all of us on the show today. I really appreciate that. I want to remind folks to vote October 1st. That's the important day. When cannabis was passed, I didn't know much about it. I've learned a lot about it since it's been passed. So I've talked to a lot of the CBD distributors, and I visited all the hemp stores, all the cannabis stores, and I've come to have a better knowledge of it. So each day is a learning experience with this very new industry. But so far, I've learned a lot more than I did, and I'm always happy to say that. Thanks, Ken.
And we're always happy that someone of your importance is actually going out and trying to find that knowledge and not just taking word or what the stereotype might be. We always are for people expanding their knowledge in our cannabis industry.
Thanks, Christine.
Crystal?
Crystal, I'm sorry. Thanks, Crystal.
So Catherine Dodge here. I've been involved with the CBD and cannabis industry for quite a while, actually. It started, I used to work out at the gym that the Good LLC people worked at.
Right.
And so I heard a lot about it because I help small businesses. So they would ask me questions about, how do you do this, how do you do that? And their CPA and I used to co-teach small business classes. So I heard a lot about the planning from that perspective. And of course I served on the assembly while we were implementing the codes. So had a lot of conversations on the assembly and with industry about what made sense. What are the buffers, how do we regulate this industry so that it can be successful? And quite honestly, I think it was about giving the industry an opportunity to be successful and
Right.
for the public to see it as responsible. And they've all, I think, understood pretty clearly that this was an opportunity to change attitudes in the public about cannabis. And I think they've done a great job. They've showed up, they've been responsible, they've appointed. Those applications are wild.
Absolutely.
The first one or two I saw, I was pretty shocked.
And I believe a lot of these entrepreneurs in the cannabis industry and industries such as mine have been very good stewards, very good role models, I should say, as this evolves. Lakeisha.
Yes. I'm sorry. I personally have gone out to quite a few of the cannabis shops. I haven't been fortunate enough to visit every shop in town because I'm still learning that there are shops I didn't even know about. However, I have personally always had an understanding of the cannabis industry to see it actually up here.
Right.
And being a booming business has been extremely instrumental because I felt like it was necessary for people to pull that stigmatism that was attached to the cannabis world off of it, as well as CBD products. So I personally know that CBD products are very helpful. I use some of the CBD products myself.
Absolutely.
We're talking colds, pain relief, different things like that a lot of people aren't aware it can help contribute to when it comes. Absolutely. So I'm excited that we have this industry. We have a responsible industry here in Fairbanks, and I think they're making a good mark to show people that this is not just about, hemp or marijuana being a bad thing. It's about, hey, there's a lot of good sides to this.
Wow, you definitely bring up a lot of good key points there, Lakeisha. Very, very nice. And back to you real quick, Catherine. When you were in my shop the other day, you were saying something about how you, about CBDs, and I'm sorry to cut you off when I went to Lakeisha, but could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Absolutely, Kemp, thank you for
Mhm.
coming back to that. Yes, I've been using CBD oil for I don't know how many years, 3 or 4 years,
Mhm.
I would think. And one day I was putting my socks on and I just about knocked myself in the nose with my knee, and I
Right.
said to myself, what the heck? And realized that taking CBD for probably been a year at that point in time had so
Mhm.
increased my mobility that I was to say I almost knocked myself out. And I've used CBD for my dogs. The people that I work with recommend CBD because it's so
Right.
useful in inflammation and just in various conditions. So I give it to my dog every day, and I've given it to my dogs probably for the same period of time. And while I was at Cooperative Extension, I worked with the state ag department to try and put in place that university research
Right.
program about 3 or 4 years ago, because hemp is such a fabulous
Mhm.
product, and if we can grow it in our state, we can really develop another industry
Right.
that I think has just a lot of opportunity, including as a fuel. It's like one of the most efficient fuels and clean burning.
And that is forgotten so
It is.
often
Yeah.
that it can be used as a fuel.
And just back to the CBD thing, Jim, I know that you were very instrumental in helping Hempire. I know that they came after I opened up downtown and everything, and you was also very supportive when the bus ads was removed with the borough and things. But are you a CBD user as well? Do you use it?
I've used hemp products.
Okay.
You know, mainly because I have really bad dry skin, and I've used hemp products now for a number of years, hand lotion and lip balm, and I found it to be one of the best products as far as for dry skin that I've tried.
Right.
Yeah, and you mentioned Hempire. Yeah, that was great that day that it opened. I was able to help cut the ribbon for it.
Very
And I will actually agree with Catherine. You know, when they first came to the city to ask about legalization, I met with Greg early on, Trevor, Christian over at Good, talked about the product, talked about the stigma attached to it, has been mentioned here. And I have to say they've been very responsible. I haven't had any issues from the city hall side.
Absolutely. And Frank, what is your take on this?
Well, my knowledge of CBDs was in the early 1990s in the old city hall with the famous Jack Hare that wrote Emperor Will Close.
Absolutely.
And then in 2001, Lloyd Gillies and I brought a showcase in the city council. We had some CBDs products. But today, at the apothecary at your shop down there, I've never seen so many CBD products, and I do use CBDs and
Absolutely.
for arthritis in my neck, and it does relieve a lot of pain. So
And Frank is always in and out of the shop, and he's always he's been on the show, of course, a few times. And everyone who knows Frank, they also know that he's a very very well-rounded activist in the hemp industry, and has always been there. And for the listeners, Jack Hare is definitely a legend in the cannabis world. He wrote a book, a few books at that. He's no longer living. But definitely, Frank actually has brought a copy of that book here in the studio today that was actually given to him by Jack Hare. And guys like that, Rick Simpson, and not only that, to a lot of the people here in the industry that are making this happen here in Alaska and abroad, thank you. And let's get down to the next question.
okay.
Do you feel that there is too much overreach in regulations or not enough regulations regarding these industries, Jim?
Well, it's a new industry, so it hasn't been around that long as far as legalized in Fairbanks, but by looking at the applications that have come to us and meeting the owners that have come down to speak to the city council, I'd probably say there's just about the right amount. You know, I'm not an entrepreneur in that industry, so I think a better person might be you to answer that, Kemp, over me. But from what I've seen, the folks that have applied to the city have done all their T's and I's, crossed and dotted. I'd say there's probably just about the right amount. And if you ask the owners, maybe they say there's too much. But from my point of view, and Catherine mentioned buffer zones and everything else.
Right.
They bring it forward, we look at them.
Right.
Everything looks good to me.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it looks like there's enough. But for
Right.
others, it might be too much.
And I know that you was also very instrumental in hosting a lot of workshops within the council itself when all this came to fruition.
We approached this the same way we approached other things. Since I've been on the council in 2010, we handled
Right.
things like fluoride and these, and we didn't know much about all that. So what do? You have work sessions
Right.
to learn about these issues, which I really appreciated.
Do you ever feel like the MCB, the AMCO, that they may be impeding the progress here in the city as far as getting this ordinance, this on-site consumption stuff passed?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I think they are. I think they're too backed up. I don't think they're getting to things quick enough from what I've heard. And yes, the answer is yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
do you feel that there is too much overreach in regulations, or not enough regulations regarding these industries?
I will, as I said earlier, those applications are astonishingly detailed, and sometimes it feels like if I were an entrepreneur and I were wanting to do this, it would be daunting. Oh my Lord, everything. But people have been doing it, and I think that for now it's probably adequate. It's okay while the industry continues to prove itself. I think that they've come a long way. I think we're all much more comfortable with it as a community. And I think that that's helped allow the on-site consumption come forward. And I think that on-site consumption is not understood a lot by the public. It helped me when someone I was speaking with, I don't remember who, in the industry said, it's just kind of like hoodoo. It's like being able to, hoodoo has a limit, right? You can go in and you can have whatever, 18 ounces of beer, whatever it is, and that's it. And they're not there to sell more, and that's the analogy that helped me understand on-site consumption. It's there's a limit, it's a tasting room, essentially.
Right.
And I think that the state spent a lot of time beating up and working on those regulations, and I feel really comfortable with what they've come out. I trust that they spent so much time, and they heard from so many people, and they discussed it so much that I'm willing to trust their regulations there as I was the regulations they came up with initially. So do I think it's too much? I think it's a lot. It's intimidating. I think that hopefully eventually the community will trust the industry more and will be able to back some of those off. Maybe not, don't know.
If you're just joining us, this is The Buzz on KFER Radio, and our guests are the mayoral candidates talking about pot politics. Lakeisha, what is your take on the, do you feel that there is too much overreach in regulations or not enough regulations regarding this industry?
Well, I feel as if both Jim and Catherine made a very good point. Considering that it is fairly new to Fairbanks, I feel as if we have these regulations set in place that are definitely what we need at this moment. But as we continue to explore, as Catherine had stated, it's a whole lot easier to see, what may need to be added or even taken away, or what we can do. So the research aspect of this is extremely imperative for the industry. The on-site consumption, the whole idea of being able to create a space, especially for tourism, is going to be something that would be awesome in our future.
Right.
And I feel as if the more that we do the research, the more that we can solidify that this is not a bad thing, that this is something that would not just help us from a financial aspect and a tourism aspect, but our community in a sense of saying, hey, we have industries out here that allow people to do things there, and they have to be responsible, whether it's a bar or whatever. It would be the same thing with the on-site consumption. So I feel like the regulations are exactly where they need to be until we continue to explore what it would look like in the future.
Absolutely. And Frank, what is your take on the regulations?
Well, I think we're guided by the state legislature when it comes to regulation. I always think we have too much regulation, but right now 50 states have legalized CBDs across the country, so I think eventually we're going to ease up on it. But that word pot, people get confused, I heard you say pot, that you cannot get high on CBDs. You cannot get high on CBDs, so, you know, I know a lot of people come in the store when they see that apothecary, that's the first thing they ask for is cannabis.
Right.
And of course he directs them to the cannabis shop and lets them know, I'm with quite a few people. But, I think more and more education, that's what it's gonna take, I think that it's out there, and I think people are more aware today than ever of the CBD correlation, how valued they are.
Coming up on the buzz, the Fairbanks mayoral candidates. And we'll do that right after the short break on KFAR 97.5 FM. Welcome back to the Buzz. I'm your host, Kemp Langford, and we are talking with the Fairbanks mayoral candidates on pot politics. Well, I guess moving around along to the next questions. Jim, as this industry evolves, could we as a city or a community be equipped to cultivate hemp or cannabis? In terms kind of like how Dawson City does their gambling there, and the city profits from that. Is that a possibility moving forward? I know this is a pretty charged question.
It might be charged, but I don't know what the future will bring, but yeah, we could be equipped. I'm not an expert on this product. I'm not an expert on growing it or cultivating it.
Right.
But from the cultivators and owners that I've talked to, yes.
Very nice.
My questions are always, what about weather, what about this? But they've tackled some of those issues. So absolutely, it could evolve into that. It's a pretty short answer, yes.
Very nice. Catherine.
So I have to admit, I'm a little confused by the question. Do you just mean as a community, can we cultivate hemp or cannabis?
So as a community, would we be able to have all of our hemp and cannabis products coming solely from Alaska? So instead of having to take out from anywhere, would we be able to cultivate it here, distribute it here, and reap all of the benefits from our state alone?
Here's what I know about that. It seems like we're doing most of the cultivation of our local cannabis already. So
Right.
I think that's that answer.
Mm-hmm.
When I was at Cooperative Extension and exploring that hemp research project with the Department of Ag, he told me he had gone through the records about hemp cultivation in our state to try and see if there was any information. And he said there was very little. He found a couple of vague reports about growing hemp and them being very small plants. So I don't think we know yet if we have a good environment. But I certainly don't know why we wouldn't find out. And our university is an ag research university. It's appropriate for us to explore that.
I think we're heading there.
Our knowledge is definitely expanding with it.
Yeah, he said that they were like really small plants, but he didn't know if that was good or bad at the time. So it's been a couple of years, but yes, I think we should certainly explore it. It's an amazing product.
Right. Lakeisha.
Well, I'm just in agreement that it is something that has to be explored. I love the idea of being able to have it Alaska owned, just all us.
Right.
you know, our revenues coming in, us not having to have that outstretched anywhere else. So, because of the fact that we are looking at a lot of the cultivators out here that do their own work, to have us be in a position where we are the resource potentially for even other states would be extremely great and in fact lucrative. So I would definitely like to see where this goes. One cannot speak on tomorrow when it comes to this sort of stuff, but I do like the way that we're heading. I like the direction we're heading in.
Right. And Frank Attorney, as this industry evolves, can we as a city or community be equipped to cultivate hemp cannabis? And could you also address the question about soil conditions? Can we grow hemp up here?
I believe so. I came up here in the 1970s to visit my mother and father, and the guy took me out on the Farmers Loop Road to show me a half an acre. And I thought it was the other cannabis smoking. No, it was hemp. And those were about 4 or 5 feet tall. But I believe that I've talked to farmers in Delta and Matanuska, they can grow it. They can grow that. But I would like to see, I don't know, it would be support from the growers here and the industry. I'd like the city possibility invest in some land themselves to bring in some revenue.
Absolutely.
To grow it and cultivate it.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Mayor?
No. It's taxpayer money, and we don't wanna go purchasing private industry stuff, that's not our job. Our job's to get out of the way and let them do the business, not the city, so I wouldn't be for that.
Okay, somebody brought that to my attention.
Yes, sir.
They asked me to pose that question for them.
I understand.
I think it's gonna get big.
Absolutely. Definitely see both sides to this. I was just kind of just understanding how, the oil here is definitely a big productive commodity of Alaska. And, with the struggling economy and everything, every I guess, thought helps. So it's good to kind of reach all these platforms, I guess you could say.
I would like to say this, that's one day my dream is to see Alaska CBD products grown in Alaska, and that goes for the other counties.
And I think it's definitely possible. We just need the space and the right people doing it and the right kind of funding for it.
And probably the right enabling legislation. We need it to be, they still have to